Good morning and welcome to ninth grade. While some of your classmates spend their morning engaged in service to our new seventh graders, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what service is and the different types of service so that as you go forward through the year, you're thinking about it and looking for opportunities to get involved. Part of our mission statement as an international baccalaureate school is that we want to nurture students who care about each other and the world, and staff. Our whole community is looking for ways to take what we learn and make the world a better place. Gandhi said a lot of pretty great things, but one of them is that the difference between what we do and what we are capable of doing would suffice to solve most of the world's problems. You are now at the age in your life where things you do can actually make a real difference in the lives of other people. You can be agents of change as ninth graders and teenagers. And in fact, a lot of people your age are already out there doing things, amazing things, to make a difference in the world. Part of what we hope you'll be thinking and learning about in ninth grade is what is it that you are capable of doing? What are the skills, the things you know, and the things you care about that you might make a difference in the world in a way that you care about? You've probably seen this before up in classrooms or from your teachers. This is a model of an international baccalaureate school. You notice in the center are students who live the learner profile. And you also notice maybe that service is at the heart of what it means to be an IB student. Taking what you learn and putting it to work in the world is what IB looks like in action. So everything you're learning in school, all the big ideas and the content and the skills in action, that's what service is. So you think about service as a way of helping you build your character, the kind of person that you really want to be. We're going to spend a few minutes watching a film by a woman named Tiffany Shlain, who thinks and talks a lot about this idea of character. She's going to talk about a number of character traits. She created something called the periodic table of character. And if you look at them, you'll notice that they look very much like our learner profile. So here's a short movie about the idea of character.
There are 7 billion, well actually 7.1 billion humans on the planet. And each one of us has a unique character. So what determines your character? You do. And all the people around you. And of course some genetics too. But there's new science proving that if you focus on certain parts of who you are, you can develop your character and ultimately live a more meaningful, successful, and happy life, no matter what your circumstances. I mean, isn't that what we're all trying to figure out? This whole idea about developing our character really took shape in 2004, when two psychologists suggested that instead of just focusing on all the things that can go wrong with us, it's also important to celebrate all the things that can go right. You see, they looked throughout history to identify core virtues that humans across cultures have agreed lead to a meaningful life. And then they identified 24 character strengths that, when practiced and developed, could lead to these virtues. And they organized them, like scientists have done throughout history to understand things better. These groundbreaking studies showed that every person is a unique combination of these strengths. Like for me, I'm high on curiosity. I can work a little on the prudence. Actually, what is prudence? Anyhow, one of the most interesting parts of all this is they found that if we focus on building upon the strengths we have, it has a lasting effect on our happiness and well-being. So think about it. What are your top 5 strengths? Now, another part of this is that you can help shape other people's character too. They found that the key to human relationships is ultimately appreciating the character strengths in others. To explore this, we asked people around the world, who do you admire and why?
I admire my mother the most because she's very loving and caring.
Сейчас тебя стремление на людьми, которые готовы бороться за свою цель.
The person I admire the most besides
my sister, because she's so tough and so brave.
People who use their creative energy to make the world a better place.
This powerful new framework paved the way for a whole new era of social science that it turns out is unpacking a very old idea. So how do we develop these character strengths? One theory suggests that people either have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is the belief that we're born with certain abilities, intelligence, and talents, and we're stuck with it. A growth mindset is believing I can change. If I set my mind to it, I can do anything. Let's take, for example, failing at something. With a fixed mindset, failing means I'm a failure. A growth mindset understands failure happens to everyone. Of course, it's hard. I've been there. But it's also something to learn from, something to improve upon. Fortunately, we can all develop a growth mindset. It takes practice and it takes encouragement from the people around us, but it can be learned. And it's all because of an amazing part of the human brain called the prefrontal cortex. It's like our brain's control panel that orchestrates our thoughts and actions, what many scientists call executive functions. Or what neuroscientist Adele Diamond, calls self-regulations. I like to think of it as my self-control filter, the thing that keeps my impulses and emotions in check. And the way to strengthen that filter is as simple as taking a moment, focusing your attention, and asking yourself, is what I'm about to do a reflection of who I am and who I want to be? So while we're all becoming more and more distracted in this age of distraction, we need to remember to take a moment and think. There are a lot of new exciting conversations happening about character. One that I find interesting is that there are 7 strengths in particular that can be real game changers in academic achievement, success, and happiness, no matter what your circumstances. Those 7 are optimism, gratitude, social intelligence, curiosity, self-control, enthusiasm, and perseverance, also known as grit. While there have been many different theories about character throughout history, what scientists in this field agree on is that character matters, and that character strengths can be learned, practiced, and cultivated. So when you think about yourself, what are your strengths? And how can you find ways to use them more in your home, work, school, and community? It's like you have these superpowers, and focusing your attention on them makes them stronger. And then, if you focus on the people around you and their strengths, it makes them stronger too. As each of us becomes our best versions of ourselves and encourages others to do the same, we can lead to important changes throughout the world. Just imagine a world infused with more humanity, justice, courage, wisdom, and compassion. So if you can be a better version of yourself, how do you want to be?
I definitely want to be somebody that other people can feel they can rely on.
A man who was courageous.
Somebody who went for their goals. A risk taker. Kind.
exactly like my mom, beautiful, strong, and powerful.
I want people to say that I'm funny.
Nice person. Música.
Generous. Be yourself. Kind.
Accountable.
Incondicional.
Ama a gente é ela,
También
sensible, profesional.
Carismática.
I want to become someone who, when the time comes for me to die, I go, oh my goodness, I have used it up. I have run it dry. Everybody is a star.
Let me turn and shine.
So think about who you admire and who you want to become. Look around the room and think about what are the strengths of the people you see in the room around you. How can you help build on those? How can you work together to try to make change in the world? So as we think about service, there are 4 different kinds or 4 ways we can categorize service. Sometimes a project might be more than one. First kind is direct, indirect, research-based, and finally we have advocacy-based research. So let's look at each of these quickly. First, remember that service is not just picking up trash or making donations. It doesn't mean getting on a bus and going to feed my starving children. It can be that, but it can be a lot more than that. During service gives you a chance to show what you know. You practice all of these skills, communicating, annotating, distinguishing, evaluating. When you do service, you get to practice them in the real world. And you also think about all of the approaches to learning skills you're practicing: speaking, failing well, being resilient, taking good notes, being on top of your things. Service is a chance to use those skills and practice getting better at them. It's a real answer to, why do I need to learn this? The skills that you're practicing in your classes at school are going to help you take action in the world. So let's look at these 4 different kinds of service. First is direct. It's when you're working directly with or for people who benefit from your service. It's a really rewarding type of service because you can often see the results of your service right away. You might get positive feedback. It can be things like tutoring, serving food at a food shelf, helping check people in at a homeless shelter. You're working right face to face with the people you're helping. So we'll watch a kind of a famous commercial. It's actually from Thailand, about a man who does little acts of direct service all throughout his day and the way it changes him and the people around him.
เขาจะได้อะไร ถ้าเขาทำแบบนี้ทุกวัน เขาจะไม่ได้อะไรเลย ไม่ได้รวยขึ้น ไม่ได้ออกทีวี ไม่มีใครรู้จัก ได้มีชื่อเสียงที่มากขึ้นเพราะสิ่งที่เขาได้คือได้แค่ความรู้สึกได้เห็นความสุขได้เข้าใจได้ความรักได้ในสิ่งที่เงินซื้อไม่ได้ได้โลกที่สวยงามกว่าเดิมในชีวิตคุณอะไรคือสิ่งที่คุณต้องการมากที่สุด
ไทยประกันชีวิตเชื่อในความดี
One of the things I love about this ad is that it shows us that direct service doesn't have to be something you've planned or organized or booked a bus to do. It can be small things that you notice day to day in your everyday life. Small acts of kindness you can do to help somebody else out. Small ways that you can change other people's lives that may end up having a big impact. So direct service, working right face to face with the people who you are serving. Indirect service might look like this group of people building a house for Habitat for Humanity. So this is providing service, but you're not directly involved with the people who are being served. It might be for the environment. It might be for the larger community. Sometimes indirect service can be easier to do because you can do it. You don't have to leave the school grounds to do it. Planting a community garden, collecting clothes for a shelter, fundraising, mailing things to soldiers, all of those are examples of indirect service. And this example of indirect service probably looks familiar to many of you from 8th grade global studies.
People around the world work hard every day.
Choose a borrower.
Magpahiram. Recibe su dinero. Repeat.
So think about your experience loaning money through Kiva. If you got to do that last year, think about other kinds of indirect service that you may have been part of, whether it's donating something to a drive that happened here at school, something through your religious community, providing help to the world in indirect ways is also a really important type of service. Research-based service is one that you don't hear as much about. It's when you engage in research or gathering and reporting on information, and you do it to benefit your community or the public interest. That's a kind of service. It might look like conducting an oral history project, testing water or soil quality to see the health of a river or a creek near your school. It might be looking for new products from recycled materials or figuring out the recycling habits of people in your neighborhood. That kind of information can be service in itself, and it can also help people gather the information they need to do indirect or direct service. So here's one of my favorite examples of an oral historian. His name is Brandon Stanton, and he's the man behind the blog called Humans of New York, which is on Tumblr and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all over the place. And he has collected stories of New York City, but also of communities all over the world. So we'll watch a quick clip about someone who is doing research service.
GMA co-anchor Robert Roberts knows a thing or two about getting people to spill their most intimate secrets, a talent she shares with the creator of Humans of New York. Tonight, he comes out from behind the lens to take his own turn in the spotlight.
New York City, the home of millions of people. You've probably seen some of these people on the popular blog Humans of New York.
I was wondering if there's any way that I could take your photograph.
Of course you can. Creator Brandon Stanton has used this approach to photograph over 10,000 strangers in the city.
If you're going to exhibit the diversity of lives and stories on planet Earth, I don't think there's any single location that would be easier to do that than New York.
Over the past 5 years, the blog transformed from photos only to a storytelling blog, pairing quotes with pictures. This combination led to the creation of his latest book, Humans of New York Stories.
I realized that I was already going through the effort to approach a stranger and get them to let me take their photo. And it was only a small step from that to speaking with this person and learning about their lives and learning about their stories.
Brandon is known for his ability to get complete strangers to share intimate details of their lives.
There's something about a stranger, asking you these questions. I think there's something liberating about that.
The blog has over 15 million followers on social media. I spent some time in Europe, the Syrian refugee crisis. You're able to tell that story differently than some media outlets are able to, don't you think?
The very first question when I stopped a Syrian refugee that I always asked was, tell me about the day that you left Syria. They would start speaking in Arabic, they would stop, and then tears would start coming down their face.
I was curious to see how Brandon is able to get people to reveal so much of themselves, using me as an example.
Hey, excuse me, do you mind if I take your photograph?
I don't mind. And what started as a mock interview quickly became real.
Can you tell me the single moment in your life that you felt lost most acutely?
I know this sounds odd, because I'd gone through loss of my health twice. My mom, my dad, previously. When my dog died earlier this year, after almost 18 years, that's the one constant that's been in my life through all the losses that I've had. KJ was the one who got me through. And so it was hard to get out of bed. I was shocked that of all the losses, my beloved pet, but it made sense in the end because talk about unconditional love.
Our thanks to Robin. It was English composer John Powell who said, the only love worthy of a name is unconditional. Humans of New York Stories will be available tomorrow.
So Brandon Stanton getting beyond the single story, trying to tell the story of cities and communities so that we can find our common humanity and see beyond the surface of people. That is a kind of service. And it's called research service. And finally, we have advocacy-based service. This one, if you've ever been on the internet and seen a hashtag, is probably pretty familiar to you. So this is about informing the community about the need to help solve a problem and ways to make a difference. This one you might do as part of a class. And often you're doing it in school without even realizing it. I know that there was a science class once that went around the building and looked for where they could find germs on door handles and other surfaces, and they found that drinking fountains, pretty full of germs. Sharing that information and raising awareness is a kind of service. Other examples, writing letters, holding town hall meetings, creating posters about bullying, or hashtag campaigns to raise awareness about an issue. All of these are types of service. And this one probably looks familiar to you.
I'm accepting the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge.
That was really cool. Oh my God! Three, two, one.
Yay, Justin!
I've never hated two people more in my whole life.
Oh, no, this one's for you.
Wait a minute. Are you ready for this? Here we go. Great call. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead. I got half out. Next. There you go. Oh, that's cool already. 3, 2, 1. Oh, my headphones! Ow! Oh, my headphones! Ow! 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 I'm freezing cold, and I think I electrocuted my face.
So some pretty goofy ideas there, but the bigger idea was challenging people to pour a bucket of ice water over their head as a way of raising awareness about ALS and raising money. And it was really effective. They raised millions of dollars, and it's improving the atmosphere for research for ALS. So sometimes advocacy service can be kind of goofy as a way of raising awareness and trying to make a difference that way. So finally, we're going to freeze the screen here and have you talk to a partner in the room. Just find somebody who's sitting next to you and share examples. What kind of service have you participated in? It doesn't have to be through school. It could have been through Scouts. It could have been through your religious community. It could be something one of your parents dragged you to do. Try to think of one example of service and then see if you can figure out which type of service it was, what made it rewarding, what you learned from it. And then the last thing is, which learner profile trait did you need to make that service happen? Did you need to be a risk taker? Did you have to be open-minded? Did you have to find balance in order to make time for it in your life? And we're going to ask you to share out a couple of examples with the rest of your home base to start to get an idea of what kinds of service people have already been involved in. As we go forward through the year, we want you to have a service mindset. Be looking for opportunities to teach somebody else, raise awareness, get involved directly or indirectly as a way of trying to make your mark on the world.